Let's start our lesson. So this is the animation basics for the 3D animation 1 class, and we'll be using the students models from the previous lesson, how to model a simple spaceship. So I'll open one of the files here so that you guys can see how we can add different objects from different files into the same scene. All right, one way to simply do it is copy and pasting. All right, so if this spaceship right here, if I Control C or Command C, copy it. All right, and if I go to let's say start a new object or get an existing one, right, let's say right here, and then I do Command V or Control V to paste it. There you go. So that's one way to quickly add an object to another object. Object to another scene. All right. But we'll start fresh here by just having the cube. Okay. And I'll show you a way to append or add objects from a scene. All right. So what we have here are volunteer projects from our students. Okay. That they modeled their spaceship, so we'll bring them in here. So this cube right here for now, we'll delete it. All right, and then I'll just simply click and drag another Blender file into the scene right here. So if I drag this, and I'm using Blender 3.0, the alpha version right here. So if I click and drag this, and I let go, it's going to ask me, what do you want to do? You want to link it or append? If you link, then it's still it's just linked in there, and the changes you do from the previous file will kind of carry over, but I just want to append it. All right, so you're adding. So if I click append, it will then ask which object. All right, so you got to go to the object folder, and then we have the spheres right here. Okay, and those are the two objects that I'm pretty sure Keegan modeled. It wasn't named yet, so I'm pretty sure this is the dome or that's the body. So I'm going to bring those two objects together. So it's good to name your object, so when you append, you'll know exactly which one. So when I click append, there's a spaceship right there. Okay, so I'm going to click on my render view or material view preview right here so you can see that. All right, there it is. And it's still separate because the way we designed it, it's separate so that we can do some parenting later and whatnot. But for this purpose, it's a basic animation lesson, so we're just going to combine the two. So I'll have this one selected and this one, shift click. Okay, let me turn on my screencast. All right, and then shift select the other, and then you can do Control J to join the two together. You can also go object and then where's my Control J here? There you go. Or Command J, you're on a Mac, Control J, so it doesn't matter. So if you click join right here, they become a single object. All right, they might lose some normal auto smooth right here, okay, because it's a combined object, so it inherits the one before it. So there you go, and then smooth shade. So this one's good to go. We're gonna call this one we'll just call it spaceship 1. 0, 1 right there. Okay, so we got one, and then let's look at the item right here, and then let's kind of zero out the location to the, just so that it's staying at 0. I mean, we'll kind of fix all that. So all right, next just bring this one also here, and then append, and this one go to object sphere. All right, so it looks like this is a single object. All right, and then there it is. Let's take a look here. I'm going to press G to kind of move it. All right, here we go. Zero out the context right there. Rename it spaceship 02. All right, we'll bring another one. Append. Go to the object folder. So there's two, so I'm going to shift click both of those. Click append. While those things are selected right now, Control J to join them. All right, and then I can do a click back the auto smooth on the normal and give it a name. 0.03. And one more. Append object. Select both object. Click append. Okay, I'm just gonna move it here so I can see it. Control J. Reselect. Shift click. Then Control J to join, and it's auto smooth. Rename 04. And let's take a look. There's some rotation values on this, so I'll zero those out so it's flat, and 0 on this one. Let's get rid of rotation. So let's try to keep them flat. All right, so it looks like that's it. If I go to the first view right here. All right, so I'm just going to select all this and then do an object apply, all transform, so that everything is kind of resetted out. You can see their scale values to 1 now. So we have 4 ships, and then let me prepare the floor for it. Okay, and we're going to just use a plane for that. So Shift A. A mesh plane. That would be the same thing as going to add mesh plane right here. All right, so we have our plane. I'm going to go number 7 on the numpad, or go to the top viewport. All right, and I'll scale this one maybe like that. Okay, and then scale it along the x-axis, because we do have a graphics that Gary did that we can use for this. All right, so there's that. Not quite sure where we're going to position that first, but let's bring in the graphics that Gary did. So I'm going to click here and scroll down. There it is, road JPEG. So I'm just going to drag it here so we get to see it. So there it is. It's quite tiny, maybe too small, but we'll kind of zero out its position, right? So 16:10:00. So we'll just click and drag that. So this is how I'm doing it. I'm just simply clicking and dragging the mouse, so I get all 3 input, and then I type in 0, and that object is right here. So now I'm going to scale it. So press S to scale. All right, there it is. Okay, what I'm trying to do here is simply match the kind of aspect ratio of that one with our plane, so it matches. So I'm going to press S on this one, on the plane, right? That's the ground, and then, all right, there we go. Close enough, and then we'll just, all right, that should be good enough. All right, so now I don't need the empty, which is the graphics. You know, we could have just kind of used that, but we're also kind of learning texturing and whatnot. So I will just simply delete this. Okay, now I'm going to go back to this one, which is the plane. All right, and we'll press tab here to go to face mode, so that we can select the face, and I'm going to unwrap this, unwrap projection from view, so that when we go to our UV editing right here, it already knows what the how to kind of position that. All right, so let's go to shading. All right, with that thing is selected, let's add a shader. So if you're not familiar with what's happening, we do have lessons before this covering how to do all the shading for you. All right, so click this shading tab with the plane selected, click new. All right, and let's drag, where's that, downloads, and let's see, PNG is what I'm going to use because it's the higher res. So I'm going to click on base color, the base color, and voila, we should see the UV edit matching the correct aspect ratio. So I just need to basically select everything here on what's representing the plane, and then just scale it. How come we didn't quite match it? So a little worried there. Okay, let's do that again. Oh yeah, because there was no texture. So let me unwrap it again. Project from view. There you go. So it matches it. Okay. And then when I scale this, even though I bolded it before, it should perfectly fit that. So, all right, there's that. And probably go back to our layout here and tone down the reflection on that one, so make it more rough. Okay. All right, so now we have our lanes here. So we have we're going to prepare the spaceship now, so they'll be on the starting position right here, and then we're just simply animating them from left to right. Okay. So first things first, I'm going to go to number 1, which is numpad 1 to go to the front orthographic view. I'm going to switch to my move tool here, making sure my screencast is still active. All right. So I'm just simply going to position those so that they're above the ground plane, right? So let's start with our spaceship 1. Okay, right there, and spaceship 2. It's kind of eyeballing the bottom. They don't have to be perfectly aligned. Well, they're supposed to be hovering, so that's another thing. Spaceship 4. So just kind of position them on the front. So now when I go to number 7 here, which is the top, regardless where I grab them, so I'm going to press G here, they're not going to go, change their position or anything. All right, so there's that. So I'm going to increase the size of this a little bit so that they can fit on those in that lane. So let me go to item right here. My scale for this 17, so I'm just going to press S and then kind of scale it a little bit more. Looking at the X, the reach about 20 right there. Okay, and this should give me the starting line right here. So I think that should be good. If not, we can always make it bigger. All right, so I'm just kind of positioning these, and it should be relatively same size, because if you follow the lesson, then they'll have all those. All right, so X-axis right here, we just want to put them probably whatever the value on this one is that. Let's put it on -16. All right, so I'm just gonna grab each one on X, put -16 right there, so they're all kind of the same position on the X-axis. -16, -16. All right, so that should be, should be the same right there. And then what I'll do here is select each one, shift click all of them, then I'm gonna go object apply all transform, so that would just kind of reset the value, but I didn't mean to do all transform, I meant deltas right here. So I'm going to apply all transform to deltas. It zeroes in everything, and then it retains the pivot point on each one. It's still at its center. Okay, so this is basically just to study and learn basic animation. All right, how do we animate in 3D? All right, what are the keys, so on and so forth. Okay, so now that we have all of these positioned right here, we can start our animation. So I'm just going to kind of center the screen right here so you can see it. All right, on our screen right there, and then we're going to switch to the animation tab so we can go back here to kind of preview it later. So I'm going to go to the animation tab up here. I'm going to turn on my screencast, so turn on my sidebar right there. So this is what the camera sees, right? So this guy right here, so that's what it's actually seeing. And this is kind of like our working camera. All right, so that's fine. We might be able to, should adjust this. So I'm gonna go to preview right here first. So this is our working camera. So I'm gonna go press 7 right here and then kind of replicate what we were seeing before. All right, so there we go. And right here, and then our camera kind of useless because it's looking at nothing, right? So let's take a look here at how we can kind of position this so you can kind of see some sort of action in here, not just staring at nothing. All right, so right here I'm going to press N for the sidebar with my mouse cursor at this position where the camera is, right? And then when you go to view, you'll see this option right here where it says camera to view, lock camera to view. Once you do that, you can then control this as if you're using the mouse when you manipulate here, right? So if I go shift middle click drag, all right, and there it is. So I just want to kind of position this so that there's some sort of there we go, we get an angle so we get to see some action in there, so it's just not pointing at. It's not really important right now. We're not doing staging, we're just kind of animating, and we just want to make sure that you could see this from the top, and then you know where they go. All right, so I'm going to go back to item right there, and then we can learn our animation. So here the tools are hidden, so that press T for the tools to pop up. Okay, so there's that. And just want to make sure that we're using the move tool right here, and when we select it we actually see this axis, right? So we're in the top viewport, so we don't have the Z axis here. You're only allowed to go X and Y. So obviously what we want is this is a race or sample. It just go like that. Okay, so and I'm just kind of demoing this to you. In Blender, you can right click right now with your right mouse button and it cancels that command, which is great. So you can do some preview and not necessarily do this. Well, you go, all right, go right there and then click undo. All right, you don't need to. As long as you're holding down that left mouse button, then you right click, it'll cancel, it'll go back. So you can quickly preview stuff. All right, so down here is your timeline. And without doing anything, it defaults to the dope sheet, right? So we're in a typical dope sheet in 2D animation. This is vertical, but here, of course, it's video. Our timeline is horizontal. So by default, when you start Blender, you get 250 frames, okay? And we animate in 24 frames per second. So that will change. If you're animating 30 frames per second, then 240 would be 10 seconds, 300 would be 10 seconds if you're in 30 frames per second. So 250, let's do our animation, and let's just kind of change this one to 100. So we have 99 frames right there. I mean, I could put 0 right here, so we'd start at 0 and our position at 0. So we're, so that gives us 100 frames. So starting at 0 to 100. 0 to 100, and this particular spot right here simply drags this playhead, okay, where you park your position in time. So I'm going to middle click drag in here, and then I'm going to scroll my mouse so I can kind of center my 0 to 100. So I'm maximizing all my real estate area. Okay, so let's start with this. So we just want to move this one so it's on 0, right? So if let's preview this. If I drag this all the way here to the finish one, what's the closest? We've got to round out that number. So it says 31. So we could probably end it at 31. So we could actually type in numbers. So if I want this to go all the way to finish, and this is the x-axis, which is the red arrow, right? If I go here on location, type in 30. All right. I didn't quite make it there. Maybe 31 was the number. Let me see. Oh, is it 31? Let me try 32. That's too much. So maybe 31. 31.5. All right. All right, there you go. So we're going to go with 31.5. Something we'll kind of remember. Put it back to 0 right there. Okay. So how do we do animation in any animation program? All right. So the thing is, it's kind of quite universal. Okay. You select the object. Okay, that you want to animate. That's the first thing. And then position the playhead where you want your animation to happen. Not necessarily mean where to start, it's just where you want it to happen. Okay, and then adjust parameters, meaning set the value of where you want your animation to begin or start or to happen. Okay, set a value, and then finally keyframe it. So there's 4 steps. Select the object, position the time, manipulate value, and then finally right click, insert keyframe or insert single keyframe is the 4th one, which is basically keyframing. This is represented on a lot of programs as a diamond icon where you press, and that's your keyframing. Okay, so those 4 steps, and we're gonna keep repeating them like a mantra here, so you will remember. Okay, so we just want this to go from here, value 0, starting point, all the way to the finish, which is 31.5. All right, so we're going to do it 4 times. Really simple, right? The keyboard shortcut for Blender for keyframing is I. And then it doesn't start the keyframe. It will ask you, hey, what do you want to animate? Location, rotation, scale, all sorts of stuff, right? So what we want, we're just learning location, right? Location is movement animation, all right? But if you press I and pick location, it keyframes all three axes, X, Y, and Z. As you can see here, we're not even seeing Z, right? But it adds a keyframe. There's advantage to this. This means you are animating static keys where you're basically leaving some bookmarking in a way. You're marking keyframes with no value. So there is purpose to this, but not today, all right? We're kind of simplifying it. So I'm gonna click undo. So instead of pressing I and then animating all keyframes, we're just going to animate the movement that we're actually doing, which is X, all right? So what is the first step? Select the object. There we go, it's selected. Next, select the time. So I'm going to select the time at 0. This is where I want my animation to start on frame 0. Step 3, okay, add value. Well, we already have value, 0, meaning stay there, all right? We don't want to add any value, but 0 is still a value. We don't want to increase the number, right? And then finally, what's the next step? Keyframe. So I'm going to right click here where it says X, and then you have an option instead of I, below it, it says insert single keyframe. So I'm going to click that, and it keyframed it, and it's represented here. So you can see here in my dope sheet that there's a key. If I open my object transform, there's one on X location, okay? So in order to play my animation, I can press the space bar or play here, and then that's what happens. All right, well, nothing's going to happen because simply we just animated the beginning of the spaceship 1 or 2. Okay, I should probably move those in order, but anyway, yeah. So we just keyframe it. So this is a lot of beginner animators' mistake is that they don't keyframe the beginning. They jumped the gun and they started animating where it should go. So they move it like this and then animate it there on frame 0. Guess what? It's going to start right there because that's where you marked it to be at the beginning. All right, so that's the first keyframe, right? So what is a keyframe? Keyframe is simply it's a mark, right? So it's a location based, since we're doing location animation here. All right, think of this is, let's say, Spider-Man. There's 2 buildings, and then Spider-Man is doing a swing. All right? And we're going to have minimum 3 keyframes there to kind of set the animation. So we're going to keyframe Spider-Man on the first building, okay? And then probably on the downswing, we're going to put another keyframe in here and then another keyframe right here. So there's only 3 keyframes. So if you actually do that, it'll look very crude. But those are the major keyframes. In the animation industry back in the day with you know, you have your senior and junior animators. So senior animator would animate the major keyframes, the major key position. The junior animator will draw all those steps in between. Hence, they call it in-betweening or tweening. It's just drawing the in-between. Here, we are the senior animator. We are only doing 1 keyframe here and another keyframe at the finish line, okay? So that means there's 2 keyframes, and then which one is the junior animator then? Who's gonna fill in all the gap? Well, that's the program, Blender. Blender is your junior animator. It'll fill up all this. However, you're not gonna be happy with Blender's way of putting these things because it's operating by default. So which you could be happy if you like the default one, which is ease in and ease out, applying principles of animation. But let's say you want this to be kind of static, then that's why we edit animation keys, and we'll learn to do that. All right, so we got our first keyframe right here. Okay, and so now we're going to do the other keyframe. So what is the first step? Select the object. All right, I still have it selected. Next, we need to move the timeline, right? So we don't want to animate from 0 to 100, otherwise we won't see much of an ending. It just ends right there. So we have the object selected. I'm going to move this. We're just going to animate them on frame 80. Okay, so that will give us 24, 48, and then close to like 3 seconds. Okay, so we selected the object. We moved the time to 80. Right. Step 3, manipulate the value. So 31.5. I'm going to move this so just so you guys see it, so it just doesn't jump there. All right. So we go right there and we say, okay, 31.6. Okay, 31.6. All right, so we move it in there, and then the last step is the keyframe, right? So I'm gonna right click this, insert keyframe, and then that will do the animation. Most people make this mistake at this point where they would move that and then forget to keyframe it, and then when they play it, nothing happens. It goes back there. All right, because we remember we animated this spaceship to stick in there at 0. So if you forgot to do the keyframe at the end, it will not work. So I'm going to go to 80 again here, 31.6, right? 31.6. And then fourth step, right click, insert single keyframe, and there's your keyframe right there. So if I tap the space bar, it does loop, right? So when it ends the playback right here, and there's the spaceship. There's your first animation. All right, and we're going to do the exact same thing for all 4 spaceship, right? But before I do that, I do want to save this so that I can give it to you without the animation. Actually, let me move it back to 0, select both keys right there, and then I'm going to press X to delete keyframe, so there's no animation involved. Then I will save this, and I can give it to you guys so you can kind of play with it. So we're going to go basic animation lesson. All right, spaceship, so that I know that's spaceship involved. Hit save. All right, so now let me just kind of quickly do that, right? Object selected, time is in there, position X0, insert single keyframe, repeat the process, select the object, move the time, we said 80, move the object or manipulate the values. You can drag that instead. So, all right, 31.6. Right click to keyframe, so don't forget that. Okay, so now you got 2 keyframes. It is now playable. All right, so select the next object. Okay, select that object. Step 2, position the time, which is 0. So I'm going to go back all the way to 0 right here. Third step, add value or manipulate the value parameter, X at 0 as well. So I'm just going to go right click. Step number 4, insert single keyframe. All right, next step, select the object. Next keyframe, not next step. Next keyframe, select the object. Move the time to 80. Step 3, change the location or change the value, 31.6. It's going to be a boring race, right? It looks like they're all going to get there at the same time. All right, so insert single keyframe, which is step 4. All right, so we got 2 now. Exact same thing, like clockwork. Select the object, position the time, change the location. In this case, there's no change location because it's the beginning. Right click to keyframe. Next, same thing, select the object, move the time, change the parameter or move the object, translate the object. 31.6, right click, step 4, single keyframe. And we're only doing X. Don't get confused over Y and Z because this thing is not going to move left to right if you do that. Select the object, 0, X at 0, insert single keyframe. So the object still selected. Frame 80, move the object, 31.6 or where you want it to go. Right click, insert single keyframe. All right, and we are done with the basic animation. All right, there it is. That's how you do your keyframe. Of course, you can add elements to this, right? Later on, you're probably going to add, this one, and then you put like a, Z value where it kind of hovers up and down. Of course, we can do all that. So we're just kind of simplifying it, right? The reason why we're doing this is that we're going to see how the function curve relates to this, okay? So this is called timing and spacing, okay? So notice how the spaceships are actually moving at the beginning and when they end. All right, so there's a dampener here, okay? So they slowly start to move. They don't move at the same speed quite in the middle as the same as that one. And then before they hit the end, they kind of slow down. So there's an ease in, ease out, easy in, easy out, or slow in, slow out. So there's property principles of animation applied here, okay? So they don't necessarily fly at the same speed, constant speed, okay? That's because the default in Blender, when you just keyframe without manipulating it, it has a Bezier function curve, which is a smooth curve that slows to start, gain speed, and then slow to stop. Okay, let's take a look. So we're just going to concentrate on the first spaceship right here. Let me just select this one, this plane, and then I'm going to filter it. I'm going to add a filter so I don't touch it and accidentally select it. So I'm going to put on selection right there, and then I'm going to uncheck that. So no matter what, I can't select that thing, right? Same thing with the light, same thing with the camera. So the only thing I can manipulate here or select are this. So it minimizes error, okay? So let's select this one. We are seeing the function curve, dope sheet. Let's change this to function curve. So let me click on this icon here, the very end corner, and then go to my graph editor. Let's take a look at the graph editor for the first spaceship. All right, so we're only animating X. X is represented by red arrow, hence you see the function curve, it's red. All right, so we can't see it right here because we have to zoom out. The keyboard shortcut is if you have your dot, okay, numpad frame selected right here, it'll just kind of zoom in on the function curve. So there it is. So when we play this, this represents slow. This also represents slow. Okay? So that's why it's all the same. All right. Now, let's select. We're going to keep the top one as the slow right here. So let's select this one here, which represents the same thing, but I'm going to change the function curve at the beginning, right? So you have Bezier handles. So this 0 keyframe right here is represented by this handle. There's two handles on each side, but since we have nothing before 0, we have nothing after. We do have something after 80 because we have 80 to 100. So if I manipulate this handle right here, it changes the function curve of the blue teal one right here. So watch this. I'm going to press G as in grab, okay, the move tool G, and I'm going to change that. Look where it's at right now. It's way ahead of the curve. Way ahead of the race on frame 12. They all start at 0. Since I changed the function curve to go fast, which is the opposite of slow, look, it's almost halfway right there. It looks like it's going to win the race, but let's see. Remember, it still has what? Slow to, it has a slow, what do you call this, trajectory to finish, right? So let's see. It looks like it's going to make it, and then it doesn't make it in time. It's a rigged race, folks. Don't get too excited. They all finish at the same time. It looks like it won by a hair, but it did not. Okay? Because it's still kind of the same. All right, so what if I change this one? Okay, what if we make that even faster? All right, so that, we can reverse it, make it slower or make it even faster. Well, you can't go past the threshold because it'll definitely win if you do that, because it'll go beyond the initial location. Because look, it's if I park this on frame 80, we manipulate this like this, it'll have it's a different value. All right, so we don't want to go past the line right here. All right, actually, let's kind of leave that alone right there. I'll click and do. All right, so okay, so that kind of changes it, right? So just simply changing the beginning here to go fast, you get a different result already. All right, so let's go to this one right here. Okay, so we can make this one, let's say, constant, right? Like a machine. There is no variable speed change, all right? It will be same speed at the beginning and same speed at the end. All right, so how do we do that? So one way is just if we grab the handle right here, select that, select this one, and then if you kind of eyeball it, grab that one. So constant, like a straight line. Look at that. Well, I probably did a good job right there. It looks like it's a slanted straight line. And what's going to happen is this is constant speed. Look, all finish at the same time. It's just that there's no variable in speed. But since I eyeballed that, it's not very accurate. So let's make sure it's accurate, right? So you can select a key like so, okay, and then press V as in victory, and then you can get a preset handle right here. So if I go vector right here, all right, well, actually, let me click undo first. Let me put it back to when it was smooth. Right there, okay? Before I manipulated it. There we go. I'm gonna select the key, press V, vector. You can see it, it changes to that, and this one too. All right, there you go. So now we know this is a constant speed right here. There's no variance, there's no curvature in on the speed. Okay, or on the animation. So let's play it. All right, so they all end at the same time. it's a look. They all finish at the same time. It's an optical illusion. Okay. All right. Okay, so on the last one right here, we're just going to change its ending right here, and we're going to go like so. All right, so now let's see the difference. Slow and then whoa. Okay, it speeds up at the end. Yeah, so that's basic animation in 3D and in 2D, or this is all timing and spacing. All right, so timing would be 0 to 80 frames. So that's our timing. All right, it takes about 80 frames for the spaceship to go from left to right. Okay, from left to right, it takes 0 to 80. Spacing, however, is how many times we pack the spaceship in a particular position. All right, imagine if this is 2D animation. All this movement that you're seeing right here you're drawing the spaceship one at a time. Okay, so the spacing for the top one, so let's concentrate on this first. Okay, the spacing on this is that it's packed in here because it's slow, all right? And then here it's kind of spaced out a little evenly, and then you packed it in. The spacing is packed in closer to 80, right? The second one, the spacing is that it's really spaced out here. It's spread out at the beginning. Then it kind of goes a little constant right here, and then it slows. We pack in the spacing at the end. Okay, the third one, even distribution of spacing. Timing is 0 to 80, spacing is even distribution, like a machine. There is no slow in, slow out, there's no speed up, nothing. The last one, look at that, packed in like crazy. So much packed in right here. I mean, look, it barely moved. It's still at the start on frame 25. So if this is 2D animation and you want your animation to be like this, you're gonna draw a lot of circles right here, lots and lots, till you get to frame 35. You're doing, from frame 0 to 25, you're packing in a lot of circles right here. And then when you go to 25, then you're spreading out your circles. And then here, look at this one, from 79 to 80. That's a big jump, 79 to 80. So that's a lot of spread out spacing, all right? So this is what we mean in animation as timing and spacing. Timing is your keyframe, and then the spacing is what happens in between. It's how you pack them in. Since this is 3D animation, you don't draw anything. You simply manipulate your function curve. What about if you don't like function curve? You're very traditional. You're doing frame by frame animation. Then that's exactly what you have to do. It's like move it one at a time. Like if you're animating this, frame 1, right? Frame 0, sorry, frame 1. Look, it barely moved. It's moving by a hair, okay? Right there. And then that means you're keyframing it. So you can do it traditionally, or you can also use the aid of function curves to accelerate or decelerate your animation, okay? So let's go look at our dope sheet back. Remember, I'm in function curve, I'm in graph editor, right? Let me go to my dope sheet right here. As you can see here, there's only 2 keys, and we have changed the way these spaceships kind of behave simply by changing function curve. All right, so by understanding this, we can now move forward into applying principles animation to into the bouncing ball, so that you understand proper movement, proper bounce, and there's really no proper bounce. It's whatever the ball is, you know, what is the material that the ball is made of course, right? There's no proper bounce, not unless you factor in what type of material the ball is. Yeah. So anyway, I will give this to you with the starting lineup like this. All right, and simply I'm gonna add actually 8. I'm gonna add 8, and then your homework will be to animate all this very similar to what I did, all 8 of them, but change the function curve so they all kind of behave differently, but they all finish at the same time. All right, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.